When you look at the periodic table and you go to number 27, you're confronted with the letters CO, which stands for cobalt. The usage of cobalt throughout human history is not clear, but one of the oldest things found belongs to 3,400 years ago in ancient Egypt, which is a blue type of glass. The blue color you're seeing on the glass comes from the cobalt used in it. When you go 1100 years into the future around 300 BC, the usage of cobalt in different glassware goes to China and Persia, and the only place they use it is different glasswares which they want to paint blue. Back in the day, anything they wanted to paint blue, they would either use lapis lazuli or cobalt. So what was the name of cobalt thousands of years ago? There is no real name for this element because nothing has been written. And if something was written, it has been lost in history. The first time that cobalt got its name was in the 16th century by the Germans. The Germans named it Cobalt, which means goblin in German. This naming wasn't done by different scientists or chemists. It was actually done by the employees that worked at the cobalt mine back in the 16th century. And after that, the name stuck to it, which is why now in English you call it cobalt. Just like we said, the only way cobalt was being used throughout history was to paint different things blue. And the people didn't even know that this is a form of metal. That remains until we get to the year 1735, when a Swedish chemist by the name of Georg Brandt realizes in his laboratory that this is a completely new metal. So this was the first time that cobalt was discovered as a metal, and it's one of the newest metals discovered in the world, around aluminum as well. And we've made a video about aluminum if you would like to see it. They did discover cobalt, but they didn't have any use for it. They still used it as a blue pigment in different things, not as a metal. Just like most metals in the wild, you can't find it in pure form, and it has to be processed to come out in pure. And another thing, it's not that common. If you've seen our video about aluminum, that's the most common metal on planet Earth, and you can find it everywhere, but you can't say that about cobalt. Another interesting fact about this element is that when tobacco plants are being grown, they always absorb the cobalt in the soil. So if anybody uses any type of tobacco like cigars, cigarettes, or hookah, they are smoking cobalt with it as well. One of the many reasons that tobacco, especially cigarettes, is very cancerous for humans is because of cobalt. But that's alongside a lot of other chemicals that make it cancerous. But this element is up there. Let's get to the modern world. An element that was used as a blue pigment is now one of the most important metals in the world. But why is it so special now? It's all because of this, the lithium-ion battery. Right now, lithium-ion batteries are the most usable and practical batteries we could use. They could be charged quickly, they hold the charge, and they could produce a lot of power. This is something that cannot be said about other types of battery. You might say, why does it have the name lithium on it? But this battery is not possible with two other main metals. One is nickel, and more importantly, the other one is cobalt. Just look at how useless cobalt used to be to what it is now. Right now, any type of technology that you use, like your cell phone, laptop, or even electric vehicles, all these work with lithium-ion batteries. And one of the more important elements inside these batteries is cobalt. A lot of people say that electric cars are good for the environment, but this is an illusion. Mining the minerals for these batteries is one of the dirtiest things humans do. Not only in terms of the environment, which actually damages it pretty much near fossil fuel, but it's worse in terms of this labor and slavery that is used to get it. The ones that collect cobalt are pretty much slaves. You might not believe it that in 2023 there's slavery going on, but it's very much alive, and it's worse than ever. There's even videotapes of them now, and you can see them online everywhere. Right now, the #1 producer of cobalt that produces more than 70% is the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Unfortunately, in this giant country, there is a whole lot of cobalt, and that has made the population turn into slaves. But why is that? Corrupt governments that allow huge companies to enter the country and use their people as slaves so they can empty out the field. But when did this nightmare begin? Around the beginning of the 21st century, lithium-ion batteries were taking off, so there was a shortage of cobalt. So it's more than 20 years that this type of slavery has been going on in the Congo. More than 40% of the world's cobalt is located in the Congo, an insane amount of people, a very corrupt government, and the people are not protected whatsoever. So left and right, they're being taken advantage of, and since they are very poor, they are forced to do this type of labor so they can get paid to eat for that day. In these mines, there's no safety, no proper equipment, no proper clothing. It looks like ancient slavery, but it's modern and it goes on to this day. Since they don't have proper equipment, they're mostly working with their hands and bare feet. And unfortunately, most of these slaves are children under the age of 18. And these kids do not have a very long time because they work in a very harsh environment that gets them very sick very quickly. Any electronic you buy around the world, from electric car, cell phone, razor, laptops, electric scooters, bikes, any country, any brand you buy, their cobalt came from these slave fields. Slaves that are mainly children. Right now, around 100,000 tons of cobalt are produced per year, and this is a shortage because the demand is much higher. So these companies are trying to raise the production of cobalt. But if the cobalt mines are not in an area like the Congo where you can use cheap labor or slave labor, the price of cobalt is gonna rise drastically. And if the price of cobalt raises, everything electric that requires this type of battery rises as well. Some people believe that electric cars will fail in the near future, and the main reason is that the minerals that are required to build these cars are so much worse than anything else we need, and it's pretty much a shortage of all of it. And when you actually get a hold of that type of mineral, it causes more pollution than fossil fuels. So what's the point? So they say a new type of battery is needed for all cars to be electric. Let's enter one of these mines in the Congo to see what goes on. The amount of money that these people are paid can't even afford them proper shoes. They can't even have gloves. They can't even use a tool while they work because they can't afford it. Some of them go find a rebar or a type of stick around that area so they can make their work easier and dig easier. Breathing in a mine like this is terrible, especially when there are thousands of people around you all digging and raising dust around in the area. All this cobalt in the air makes its ways to the near water, and it pollutes that as well. So not only are these workers breathing all that cobalt day in and night out, but the water they drink also has cobalt in it. How much do they get paid for them to do stuff like this? They work from sunrise all the way to sunset, and if they work good for that day, they get around 3,000 Congolese francs, and that's about $1.20. These companies take all these cobalt ore, turn it into pure cobalt metal, and sell it for the market price. And right now the price has actually lowered drastically ever since 2023. In the beginning of 2023, the price of cobalt was $51 per kilo. But now it has lowered drastically and it's around $33 a kilo. And probably the amount of money they're paying these slaves is lower now too. Nowadays, for third world countries, it's better if they don't have any natural resources. Because if they do, they're taken advantage by the more powerful ones. And this takes place.